of what you believed to be true was never meant to make you intelligent. It was meant to make you obedient. From the very first day you walked into a classroom, someone else decided what you were allowed to know, and more importantly, what you were never supposed to question. You were told school exists to educate you, to prepare you for life, to teach you how the world works. You were told to trust the system, trust the books, trust the authority standing in front of the board. You were told that if you listened carefully, followed the rules, and memorized the right answers, everything would eventually work out. But what if that was the lie? What if school was never designed to help you understand the world, but to help you survive inside it without resistance? Because when you slow down and really look closely, some of the most important truths about money, power, history, and human behavior were carefully removed, not by accident, by design. This is not about secret societies or dramatic conspiracies whispered in the dark. This is about patterns hiding in plain sight. What is repeated everywhere, across countries, cultures, and generations, and what is strangely missing from almost every classroom on Earth. Because the biggest lies you were taught in school are not individual facts that can be corrected with new information. They are ideas. Ideas planted so early and repeated so often that they become invisible. They shape how you see success, how you define intelligence, how you relate to authority, and how far you believe you are allowed to go. They quietly limit your imagination long before you realize imagination even matters. You were taught that history is truth, clean, organized, objective truth. Dates to memorize, names to remember, wars reduced to timelines, heroes highlighted, villains simplified. You were taught that history is settled, finished, and complete. But history is not written by the truthful. It is written by the powerful. Every history book you have ever read is a version of events that survived, not because it was the most accurate, but because it was the most useful. Empires do not record their crimes as crimes. They rename them. Expansion, civilization, progress, liberation. Entire cultures erased, reduced to a paragraph. Millions of lives lost, summarized as a necessary sacrifice for stability or growth. And the most dangerous part is not what was written, but how you were trained to interact with it. You were trained to memorize history, not to question it, to accept it, not to challenge it. Because the moment you ask who benefited from this story, who disappeared from the record, who was never allowed to speak, history stops being comfortable. And uncomfortable people do not obey easily. You were also taught that success follows a straight line, a simple formula repeated so often it becomes invisible. Get good grades, go to college, get a job, work hard, retire, be grateful. This path was presented as universal, as if life itself had signed a contract agreeing to reward obedience. But look around the real world. Some of the hardest working people on earth are struggling just to survive. They wake up before sunrise, work until exhaustion, and still remain trapped. At the same time, some of the wealthiest and most powerful people never followed that path at all. School taught effort, but not leverage, hard work, but not ownership, discipline, but not independence. You were trained to follow instructions, not to question systems. Because systems do not need thinkers, they need workers, predictable workers, replaceable workers, people who trade time for survival and never ask, who owns the clock? Another lie you were taught is that money is simple. You learned how to count it, add it, subtract it, and calculate interest on paper. But you were never taught what money actually is. You were never taught how it is created, who controls its supply, why inflation quietly steals from those who save, or why debt has become the most powerful weapon in human history. You were taught how to earn money, not how money earns. You were taught to chase income, not to question systems. Because if people truly understood money, they would stop chasing paychecks and start questioning structures. They would stop working harder and start thinking differently. And people who understand money are extremely difficult to control. You were taught that intelligence can be measured, reduced to grades, scores, rankings, and exams, as if a single number could define human potential. As if creativity, emotional depth, strategic thinking, curiosity, intuition, and resilience could be captured on a standardized test. But intelligence is not uniform, it is not linear, and it is definitely not standard. Some people think in images, some think in patterns, some think in systems. Some see connections others miss. But schools reward only one type of intelligence, the kind that is easiest to measure, easiest to compare, and easiest to control. Memorize, repeat, obey. And if you do not fit that mold, you are labeled slow, average, distracted, or problematic. Not because you lack intelligence, but because you threaten uniformity. Another lie quietly planted was that authority equals knowledge. The teacher knows, the textbook is correct, the system is right. You were discouraged from questioning authority, not because questions are harmful, but because authority that cannot be questioned becomes power. History is filled with experts who were wrong, doctors who defended harmful practices, scientists who ridiculed ideas that later changed the world, governments that enforced policies later recognized as disasters. But school taught respect for authority, not skepticism of it. Because the moment people realize authority can be wrong, they start questioning everything. And questioning people are dangerous to rigid systems. You were also taught that failure is something to fear. Wrong answers meant embarrassment. Mistakes meant punishment. Falling behind meant labels that followed you for years. But failure is how humans actually learn. Every major breakthrough in history came from trial, error, and repeated failure. School punished failure. Life rewards it. But if people are not afraid of failing, they stop being afraid of trying. Then fear is one of the strongest tools of control ever created. You were taught that the world is fair, that effort always leads to reward, that justice eventually wins, that systems correct themselves. But reality is far more complex. The world is not fair, it is structured. And structures do not care about effort. They care about position. Who owns resources? Who controls narratives? School avoided teaching power. Not how it operates, not how it is maintained, not how it shifts. Because understanding power changes how you see everything. It makes you less compliant, less naive, and harder to manage. One of the most important things missing from your education was psychology. You were never taught how manipulation works, how advertising creates desire, how fear overrides logic, how repetition creates belief, how social pressure shapes behavior. You are taught what to think, not how you are being influenced. Because once people recognize manipulation, it loses its power. And modern society depends on people who believe their choices are independent, even when those choices are carefully guided. You were taught that governments exist purely to protect you, that laws are neutral, that institutions are designed for fairness. But governments are made of humans, and humans respond to incentives. School taught structure without motive, rules without context, systems without explanation. Because questioning motives leads to resistance, and resistance threatens stability. Another silent lie was that your job defines your worth. What do you do becomes the first question asked, not who you are, not how you think, not what you value. School trained you for employment, not fulfillment, for productivity, not purpose. Because fulfilled people are difficult to control. Satisfied people do not endlessly consume, compare, and compete. You were never taught how to think long-term. You were not taught how small daily decisions compound over years. how patience outperforms intensity, how delayed gratification shapes entire futures. Because long-term thinkers do not panic easily, and panic fuels compliance. You were taught that progress is automatic, that history always moves forward, that rights, freedoms, and knowledge naturally expand. But progress is fragile. Rights can be taken away. Freedoms can disappear. Knowledge can be erased. School taught stability, not fragility. Because people who understand fragility prepare, question, and protect themselves. You were taught that learning requires permission, degrees, certifications, approval. But most human knowledge was created outside classrooms, by outsiders, rebels, and people who did not fit. Schools standardized learning, and in doing so, limited it. It turned curiosity into curriculum, and exploration into obligation. Perhaps the biggest lie of all was that education ends when school ends, that learning is a phase of life, not a lifelong process. But real learning begins when questions become uncomfortable, when curiosity returns, when you realize how much was never taught. School did not fail accidentally. It succeeded at what it was designed to do: create predictable citizens. Workers who follow rules, not thinkers who rewrite them. This does not mean teachers are evil or learning is bad. It means the system has priorities, and truth is not always one of them. The moment you realize this, the world looks different. History feels incomplete. Success feels redefined. Authority feels questionable. And that discomfort you feel is not confusion. It is awareness. Because once you see the lies, you cannot unsee them. And the most dangerous thing in any system is someone who starts thinking for themselves.
Will you believe them?